Hey there, welcome to the Breakthrough Creative. I'm your host, John McDevitt. I don't know why I said my name that way. It sounded kind of crazy. I'm your host, John McDevitt. I guess there's a million ways I could say it. But this is the place where we talk about the business of art and the art of business. And I'm really excited to introduce my guest to you today. His name is Wayne Kumingo, and he has been a friend of mine for the past 30 years. And Wayne is an editor. He edits film, he edits television, and for quite some time now, he has been the editor of Check Please. Actually, for the duration of that show, he has edited every episode, and he's won an episode. He's won an Emmy for the show. And he also edits the national travel series Islands Without Cars, which is currently in production of its third season. And he has a film coming out that he has edited as well called Rainbow's End. And it guest stars Ed Asner and Sean Young, and it's supposed to be out pretty soon. But in the meantime, Wayne and I catch up on life, and we talk about creativity, making a living in the arts, and how he does the stuff he does. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to us. Oh, yeah. So I'd like to welcome my friend Wayne Kumingo to the show. Hey, Wayne.
Hey, John.
How are you, buddy?
Good.
So, Wayne, could you tell me in your own words, what is it that you do for a living?
Sure. I mean, I guess the long and the short of it is I'm a video editor, but I guess, you can expand that to television, broadcasts, and film editor, as of most recently film editor, which I'm very happy about. So yeah, that's it. I'm an editor.
That's very cool. And what, like, maybe name some of your projects that you're a regular on, and if you want to name the film, I didn't know about that. That's
Sure.
exciting.
Oh, really? Yeah. Okay. So, well, a couple of things. So I've been doing this for a long time. So the things that people in Chicago know about, which, where you and I are both located, long running. This is where I'm terrible at this, John. Marketing myself, how to pitch the shows that I work on. Long running restaurant review show here in Chicago called Check Please, which has been on for 19 years. We couldn't do it this year because of COVID. We are technically on hiatus. Fingers crossed we come back. But yeah, 19 years, and I've been with that show since episode 1. So it's been 19 years on that. And I also work on a travel show, national travel show called Islands Without Cars, that also goes to PBS nationally, which we're really happy with the way that show turns out. It's kind of a little off-center travel show, let's call it that. It's not your it's not a boring travel show. We'll leave it there. And then the film I just finished is called Rainbow's End, and we're very happy. It was just in its premiere was the QFlix LGBTQ plus film festival in Philadelphia, which they had to do online. So we didn't. It's kind of weird finishing a film, and this year happened, and nobody can see it in a theater. It's like we have to go online to do this. But I don't know how successful the festival was as a whole to transition to an online screening, but we did win Audience Choice Award. I'm going to probably get the actual official name wrong, but it's the Audience Award for favorite feature film. So we were very happy about that. And I'm undercutting again, sales pitch here, the sales pitch of the film. Guest star, our leads are great. Our lead actresses are fantastic. Guest starring Ed Asner, he's in a scene and a little bit of another scene, and Sean Young, and she is fantastic.
Wow.
So, yeah.
I haven't,
So I was really
I haven't
happy to
seen anything current on Sean Young in years.
You are not alone. We were, I don't know, the producer, director, it might have been the main producer's wife, who's also a co-producer. I think she's done other films, or she's in tune with I may be misremembering the story, but there, somebody knows somebody who knows the agent, and they send a script, and they're like, oh, they like the script. Okay, go meet with them, and then, next thing you know, Sean Young's in our movie. So,
That's wild. I
and
actually
she's
think
great. She's hilarious.
the last time I saw Sean Young in anything was Ace Ventura, Pet Detective.
Possibly, I could not tell you. I couldn't tell you the last time she would have been in a movie. All I know
Wow.
that we were lucky to get her and happy to get her. So
Yeah, congratulations. That's
yeah.
amazing.
It
So
was great.
Wayne, I know it's funny because I know a lot of your story, but then there's a lot of your story I don't know.
Sure.
So can you catch us up? Like, how did you get from there to here to where you're at today? Like, where did you start?
Well, sure. Where is there? I don't know where there is. When was that? No, I don't know. You have an interest in it, and I've always liked filmmaking. And I worked for my very first job out of college was at a cable company where you would just do everything for cheap, right? They weren't paying a lot, but that wasn't. You're just out of school and they're paying you something, and you get access to all this equipment that you otherwise wouldn't have access to. And 25, 30 years ago, everything was way more expensive than it is now. I mean, here we are doing this video call, unimaginable 25, 30 years ago without spending $200,000 on satellite feeds and stuff, So the things we take for granted now weren't the case then. And in that sense, I feel very lucky. I mean, I went to school to Columbia College, Chicago here. So I knew I was interested in it. But that first job at the cable company kind of exposed me to everything. And then they have the gear. So once you learned the gear, you could market yourself to other people because you knew the gear, which was rare to come across and rare to have the opportunity to learn it. So from there, I went to a full-time, cable company. You did everything. You wrote, produced, shot. Who needs me? Where do you need me? And it was just a good blanket experience. The very first, sort of real editing job was at a company called Orbis Broadcast Group, who's no longer around, but it was big. It was a really big company. They were downtown in the West Loop, not far from Harpo Studio, where that was in the West Loop. And that was where I just functioned as an editor. Didn't have to worry about lighting and shooting and lugging monitors and heavy gear, up 3 flights of stairs. If you want to know why I'm an editor, John, that's probably one of the biggest benefits to being an editor is you don't have to do any of that stuff. So that's where I really, really got to do, just focus on editing and fell in love with it even more. And we were exposed to a variety of projects. We did news pieces there, which news is just very quick. You'd be in and out, a producer would come in and they're walking out the door with a finished piece 4 hours later. That doesn't happen anymore. At least not in my world. That doesn't happen anymore. Now you're talking about 4 months later, people are leaving with stuff, but yeah, that was it.
Would you say, by the way, is that kind of how things work now? That it really is, or is it the type of work that you're in?
I think it's more. Yeah, I think it's more the type of work that I'm in, that I choose to be in. Maybe. I'm yeah, there's still news crews shooting footage at 2 and it's got to be on the air by 5, and they're frantically racing back and handing it off to somebody who has to slap it together. I guess I've been there and I've done that, and I appreciate all of the hard work that those people do, but I'm glad I'm not one of those people at this point in time.
All I can picture is that scene from broadcast news.
Yeah.
They're clipping it and running, and somebody's dodging under an open drawer, trying not to hit their head, handing the videotape off to somebody else, and finally makes it on time.
And again, I'm sure that's still happening, and I was never in that tight of a situation, but we still had satellite uplinks that you needed to, like, you reserved a time slot to feed it to a satellite nationally or wherever it was going, and that time slot was booked yesterday, and it's like, it's 5 p.m. You got a window. You got 5 p.m. to 5:10 p.m. and it turns on and then it turns off. And if you're not in that 10-minute time slot, then you've missed your deadline. So I think, being in that and having grown up a little bit around that, and that wasn't my everyday occurrence there, but I was exposed to enough of it to appreciate it, and to understand the importance of deadlines and thinking quickly and making quick editorial decisions about what might work. And let's face it, sometimes it wasn't whether what worked and didn't work as an edit. It was just, let's do it and get it done with. But it was good. It was great experience to be a first-time editor. And the other bonus was, it was a big building. There were producers on staff. There were shooters, camera people on staff. There was a studio attached to it. So there was a studio crew sort of attached to the building, part of the big building. And, that's the thing that's gone away these days. You don't find that often, if any at all, like, unless you even go to you have to go to a network to do that. You've got to go to a big network. And even those are pared down. I don't want to speak in a realm that I'm not 100% familiar with, but all of those news crews, Channel 2, Channel 5, Channel 7, whatever, ABC, NBC, wherever you're located, all of those news crews have even been pared down a lot because that's just the business now. You don't have a building full of 70 people where it's bustling and you get access to all these people and you have all these different experiences. It's just becoming increasingly rare. So
And a
happy
lot
to
more
have that
subcontractors, right? Just
Yeah.
for cost efficiencies.
Yeah, which is essentially what I ended up doing, is that's what I'm doing now. So all those big companies broke up, but one of the people who was a partner at that company started Check Please. So he knew me. He said, "Will you edit Check Please for me?" And I said, 19 years ago. And I said, well, I guess 20 years ago now. And I said, yes, of course I'm going to say yes. When somebody says, will you, come with me to work on this brand new show we're starting? And it doesn't hurt that I also like food and I like restaurants. So it was a good, it's a good show. It's a fun show to work on because of the content too. I don't know if I would be able to do that, quite honestly, with content that I didn't find as exciting or interesting. So that's a big part of it for me too now, is not just saying yes to everything, but actually enjoying the stuff I'm working on too,
Yeah, I know it. I know it. That matters more and more. Maybe the older I've found that I get, the type of work, the quality of work, all of that.
Right. I mean, I don't want to be editing wedding videos ever again. We've all been there. Have you had to do one yet, John? Because you have editing skills now.
Nope,
No.
nobody has been that desperate.
um, but and I know I don't take. I respect those people more for doing that as a daily business, because I've been there and I understand that how difficult and challenging it can be, and I choose to not be there. You know what I mean? I would say the same for people doing, you know, I can't think of a good example, but whatever it is, it's just, you have to make up your own mind. I have to make up my own mind about what's exciting or appealing to work on and what isn't.
Yeah.
Um, I guess I'm fortunate that I'm able to sort of be a little picky and choosy about that. Um, but I also think maybe it's a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy too. It's like maybe that pigeonholing, which isn't completely 100% pigeonholing, but if you work on a restaurant show, then I automatically become somebody who knows about restaurants and food and bars and all that stuff. And maybe that's not exactly true. I don't know all the hot new restaurants, and I don't know all the hot new chefs that are, coming into town and opening restaurants again, this past year aside. But you just become that sort of person that people expect you're going to just do that, right? I did a lot of documentary work too over the years, or documentary style, and that's that's very appealing to me as well, where you're trying to just tell stories about people. I do a lot for like nonprofits lately, a lot of nonprofit companies. Like if you're doing a a fundraiser video, like a big gala event, and you need to show a video and you need to get people to donate money to you, they they need a video to show. And the better that story is that's told, it's a direct correlation to how much fundraising they can do if you prove your point in the video, right? And those stories are always more interesting to me these days too, where you're actually trying to sincerely tell a story that raises money, as opposed to doing a video asking for money. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
about the story, and the result is you get donations, not please give us donations. I don't think at one point in any of the videos do we, well, maybe at the very end, you always got to tack on the one thing at the very end that's the actual plea to say, please support our cause. But you don't lead with that, I guess. And those are the interesting things to me too. So pigeonholing on topic, and then you're also getting pigeonholed. And I don't want to say pigeonholed, but people know you then as the person who can do that well, and then they call you again, or they know somebody who calls you.
Is that how the travel show came about?
Yeah, I guess that's how everything's come about. Seriously, and I'm going to prove it to you right now. Orbis, the place I worked, and I think I started there maybe 95 or 96. Okay. Every job I'm working on currently, well, no, not every job. There's always exceptions, but you could branch out a tree from people who went through Orbis or worked at Orbis, and now everyone's kind of doing their own, freelancing stuff, or even somebody who just passed through. Well, like I said, one of the partners there, when the company was sold, he started Check Please and he called me, so there you go. That's proof right there. But even producers that I worked with at the time, I can't remember, years go by when I first started freelancing. So I still was like at a place, right? Even when I worked on Check Please, I was hired by a company to work there. And again, those are increasingly becoming more difficult to find, I think, for this type of work. So when I decided to go, okay, no, I'm freelance. This is it, me on my own. You're relying on contacts and you're relying on clients and all that. I think I sent one email in 2008 and said, I swear to God, and it was to 12 people. And I said, I am freelancing. We're trying to make a go of freelancing. If anyone has any work, let me know. And I don't know if I got a response from one of those 12 people, again, who I've known and worked with, that I'd known now at that point for going on 12 years, at least 10 years. And they contacted me back almost immediately and said, oh my God, yes, I have this thing right now and I want you to work on it, And I swear that's the last time I've ever made a push like that for anybody to contact me, because it's all about those relationships that I've had for this whole entire experience. And it'll all come full circle here, I promise. The feature film, Rainbow's End, which won the audience award for favorite feature film, which
Yeah,
we're
I've
very
heard it
excited
won the
about.
audience award.
Yes,
for
we're very
favorite
excited about that. It's
feature film.
that's all the hard work that
Yeah.
and you don't know if any. I mean, the Check Please, the restaurant show, we had no idea anyone would watch, and 19 years later, it's still on the air. The movie, you don't have any idea you're confident in it, but you don't know how people are going to respond to it. So to win an audience award it makes all the long hours worth it. So the feature film are none of the people I worked with at Orbis. In fact, it's the executive producer of the show, or the lead producer, executive producer of the show or the movie. He was from the cable company. So he knew me for even longer than all the other people I work with. And he, he's a Chicagoan, and he lives 2.5 miles away from here. And he's called me one day and he's like, I'm working on a film. Do you want to meet for coffee and let's go have a coffee. And we did. And I don't know, I'm skeptical of everybody all the time. So for somebody to say, hey, I'm working on a movie and we got it as Ed Asner and Sean Young, I'm like, yeah, okay, I believe that when I see it. And here we are, finished film, guest starring Ed Asner and Sean Young. So
What did Ed Asner take in his coffee?
that I do not know.
So here's what's really cool, and
No, to be clear too, I didn't meet them.
no, I was
They were
joking.
shooting
Yeah,
here. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
they were shooting here, and I actually don't like to be on set. I don't like to interfere with those things when they're on a 12-hour day and the time is tight. What am I going to do? Sit
Yeah.
there and watch? Great.
So, just to kind of maybe pour back over all that you've shared so far, and you've had this journey that started in college at Columbia College, and I believe that at about the same time you were working at that cable station, right? Didn't those kind of
Yeah,
overlap?
there was definitely some overlap. Yeah.
So there was overlap. I think I remember the cable station. I think we were in there a few times and
Sure.
might have shot a couple of things here and there.
Sure.
And then you were at Orbis, and here you're telling me stories about how you sent out this one email to 12 people, and then people were finding out that you're freelancing. They're like, yes, we've got work for you. And one of those turned into a 20-year relationship, and one 20-something-year-old relationship turned into a film project.
Right.
I think that is a testament to not just your skills as an editor and an observer and a filmmaker, right? But it's a testament to your personality, and you're the kind of guy people want to work with. Like, they want to work with you because they know that you're gonna add to it. You're not gonna be difficult. You're on and on. I don't know how that hits you.
Sure. Thank you. Was that an audience award too? Maybe?
Apparently. Let me draw something up. I'll get it in the mail.
Sure. I think that's the emphasis is always on software, especially today. I can't teach my class without people wanting to learn software. It's like, forget about the software. It's going to change in 10 years. It's going to change in 20 years. Forget about it. If you're serious about this, take the whole package. Yes, you need to learn the tools that are used today, but you need to understand the world you're working in as well, right? I mean, I don't know, I make analogies and some are good, some are bad. I mean, it would be like saying, John, you exclusively can only use Photoshop for the rest of your life because that's the new hip thing. It's ridiculous. Canvas and a brush and some oil paints, and what's the matter with that? You know what I mean?
Well, and frankly, it's funny that you bring that up, because I very rarely use Photoshop anymore unless I'm editing an image, because now I've got Procreate on my iPad and it goes anywhere I want, and it's got a much friendlier artistic interface than does Photoshop. So things change.
Yeah, right. There you go. And if you were closed off to that new thing, then you would be still working on Photoshop and maybe not being as happy with it. Right. Right. So you just adapt and you change, but you also pick up a brush and go back to the canvas every once in a while too, right?
Yeah. Well, this is an older one, but yeah, I do. I was painting the other day. I'll be airbrushing a little bit.
Airbrush, right? There you go. That's the exact. There you go. Analog at its finest, right? You need some tools to get into that business, because there's equipment involved.
Right.
It's still a very analog process, but you also understand how to create the thing you're trying to create, regardless of whether or not it's one thing or the other. And that's, editing maybe isn't as simple as that, because every case is different and every shoot is different and every production is different. But I think it just comes down to understanding how to tell a story. I mean, even a wedding video, as we're going to go back to that example, you have to start in the church and you end up at the reception where everybody's celebrating. You still have to tell that story visually, and again, some projects are more exciting, some are less exciting, but if you don't understand that basic concept, then you have to keep working at it until you do, and then you can take it to the next level. And I'm probably going to contradict myself a couple of times here too, John, because I wouldn't be where I am today without the software. It was very new and young at the time, and it completely spoke to me, and it was the thing I framed my entire career around, learning this new technology and embracing it. So,
Well, and I think what you're talking about
but embracing it
is
from the standpoint of telling stories, it helped me tell stories.
right. And what it did is it made you useful in a manner that was applicable to the needs of somebody's project, right? When you
Yes,
know the software.
absolutely,
Because
absolutely.
you're probably a better storyteller today than you were 30 years ago.
100%, 1,000%
Yeah.
better. Right. And maybe that, I have one big analogy that I bring up every so often, but I can't with my students because they don't know what a laser printer is. But because I also, if I didn't mention that too, I also teach Columbia College editing courses in TV and film, and I've taught now there for 20 years as a part-time teacher. So normally 1 or 2 classes a semester, but that's been going for like 20 years now too. But where I am kind of just teaching the software, but I'm also trying to teach the craft and this and the theory behind it and the mentality you have to the framework in your mind that you have to be in order to be a good editor, right? But sure, I forget where I was going with this now. What was I saying?
Well, we were talking about analog versus software.
Oh
We were
yeah,
talking
and I
about
can't
storytelling.
talk about printers, laser printers, with my students. Um, so there, and this is a honest analogy here. One I believe in is way back when you had to take things to a printer to print anything. You had to go to a print shop and do typesetting. I was in newspaper in high school, and we had to take the newspaper to the printers to have them print it. And then one day the laser printer came along, and what happened after? So the technology came along, right? What happened after that? Everybody, every company, every block club, everybody had a really terrible newsletter. Do you remember those days, John? Right? It was just bad, but they had the technology. They were so enamored with, there's some Jurassic Park coming on here. They were so enamored with the technology of creating a newsletter. They didn't stop to ask if they should create a newsletter, right?
You
Because they were
didn't
terrible.
stammer enough to give me a good Jeff Goldblum, but
Yes,
you did
well, I'll work
mention.
on that for next time. But I did get a Jurassic Park mention in there. So, but I think there's a lot of truth in that. And in a weird way, and what are people doing now? They're actually going back to mechanical printing press artists and artisans and craftspeople to create wedding invitations and Christmas cards. I'm probably going to get like 3 Christmas cards that were sent to a hand press printed thing, because that's what people value now. They value the craft and the artistry behind it, right? Or they go to a designer, a graphic designer, who's going to design a professional Christmas card. You're not doing this in Microsoft Word anymore. Remember those days, right? Where it's like really bad. I mean, that's where the Comic Sans font came from. Is
and bad clip art.
bad clip art, the
Oh,
whole 9 yards, right?
yeah.
And bad layout, bad design choices, bad font choices, you name it, right? And I think that's kind of a good analogy for the video world right now, and editing, if I'm going to just talk about it in those terms that I'm familiar with. Everyone's so enamored with the fact that they can buy cheap editing software, and then they're just doing it. It's not to say that I guess there were some good newsletters that came out of the ability to afford your own laser printer. And there's some good videos coming out of people, with affordable software right now. But if you're just going for the fact that you can cut two things together, you're missing out on this whole world that is the artistry and the craft and the mindset that you need to be in to make good choices to do that, right? So I think, and I don't know where we're at in that arc in terms of video editing and video technology. Did everyone just get the laser printer? No, that probably happened like 4 years ago, right? 5 years ago, where there were a lot of really bad YouTube videos, for example. YouTube videos are getting pretty good these days, don't you think?
I do. I do. And I mean, just with having After Effects, people are getting better at motion graphics. They're better at telling. They're more savvy at storytelling and what the image needs to look like or cut to have some oomph behind it.
Yeah. And so we'll see, people valuing, but I think still people are maybe enamored by the production value a little bit without all the time focusing on the storytelling craft and the ability to just tell something interesting. I mean, I watch YouTube videos that are, long, but I'm watching it, and long and maybe possibly boring. maybe some people can relate as they watch this one with me in it. No, but you're there for the content, and it's 100% about the content. About things you don't normally get outside of flipping channels or renting on Netflix or watching it on Netflix or whatever you're doing. So it's way more niche stuff going on. But again, I think that whole idea of are they getting better, or is the production value getting better? But it's still not really that great. You
Right.
understand my question? And I watched some tech videos on YouTube are like a really good example for content over slick production, perhaps, right? But one person that I watch a lot, I just found out that he shoots on a red camera. These are like a cinema camera, not cheap. I think the camera body is like $9,000, and then that's without any accessories. You still need lights and microphones and lenses, always very important. And I don't know, it really kind of shocked me. So like, there's actually people being that serious about it on YouTube. But also, I think the only way you can do that on YouTube is if you're really successful, because he does have a lot of views each video, so he's making money off of it, basically, right? So YouTube is subsidizing his expensive taste in camera equipment. Maybe.
Whatever he does, he's commanding an audience.
Yeah.
And that's it sounds like a good audience. So yeah.
Right, and and again, it's maybe because of the way the image looks. It's a nice looking image, so you're immediately drawn into that, and now all of a sudden you have more views because you invested in this nice camera setup. And that even works on a subconscious level for most people, where you're not really thinking about it that much, but that little bit of investment into I don't know if I have a great conclusion to come to this story that I started telling here, John, but I guess it goes beyond the laptop. I guess that's kind of the gist of it here. At some point you do have to take some risks in better equipment, better gear. I used to have, you just edit on a laptop. You're not really set up that doesn't replace a room full of equipment. So the question is, why do you need the room full of equipment? Well, because you have a lot of specialty gear all of a sudden that you need to have access to at this higher level of sort of thinking about this, not the skill set, right? And the little details that you need to do. But for editing, for me, it's, plugins. You need a lot of plugins for filters and like special effects stuff. And I need them twice a year, but you still need them, and extra gear like a monitor that's really good, that stands alone, not a computer monitor, but just a video broadcast monitor off to the side that you can trust how the picture looks, and you can trust the quality of the image, and you can trust the quality of the colors that you're looking at. And that's, again, more talking about the technical side, but also you have to understand the skill set side to understand why you need the technical things, you know?
Yeah, I was watching. Oh, I don't know what it was. It was some Spielberg movie I was watching, and for it wasn't Lincoln, but for some reason that comes to mind. Now, there are a lot of um, there's a lot of speaking in that movie, right? And
Yeah.
it's words that need to help get you from here to there, and it's also in a bit of a parlance that's kind of old, and it can be challenging to understand some of it if you don't speak that way. And even that, I think they kind of, they change the parlance to make it a little bit more culturally relevant today. But there's something that Spielberg does in his movies that a lot of other cinematographers or directors don't do, and it's that he moves the camera. I mean, a lot of them move the camera, but there's a way that he moves the camera that it's magic. It's just magic. And there are some other directors whose work I really love, and they're moving the camera, and they may have the same equipment and I'm sure they do, they've got the same equipment as all these other people do, but the other people don't have what he has, and some of these other masterful directors to make not just the image look clear and gorgeous, but to have a reason for it to be more appealing, a manner in which he does stuff to make it more appealing. So you're smiling. I know you've got stuff to say.
Thank you for summarizing my idea. And actually, that's a really good point. I guess it's like in that case, feature films, Hollywood level, whatever the budget is, for the most part, the technology is not an obstacle. So it's all about craft at that moment, right? It isn't about necessarily worrying about, is my camera good enough or is my lighting gear good enough? Because yes, it's good. It's plenty fine, right? Every movie that was released last year in a theater, well, or in a normal year in a theater, you can assume that the equipment is a level playing field, right? And then it's all about focusing on the craft. And I guess that's my point, is there still seems to be this emphasis that the laptop software is going to make you a better editor. And that's the thing that I'm always reminding my students. It isn't about that. Yes, using that as part of the process, but it's about the skills you bring, right?
Yeah.
It's Steven Spielberg knows when to do those little moves at just the right time. I learned something about director's cuts and deleted scenes and alternate takes and all that stuff. Or you get the extras on the disc and it's all the deleted scenes that they had to cut out of the movie. Martin Scorsese has apparently never released a deleted scene, because he's like, I cut it for a reason. Like, it's gone. Like, I don't ever want to see it again. It doesn't have any place in, that's what the story I've told. I have not actually gone back to look at all of his disc releases or movie releases to see if he's ever released You're never going to see a Martin Scorsese's director's cut, because what you just saw is the director's cut. You know what I mean? And again, you're not talking about equipment. You're not talking about technology. Ooh, Martin Scorsese wouldn't be as good without that camera he used. No, he would be just as good without that camera he used, right?
Yeah, he would. Yeah.
And that's the point I'm making. So there's this obsession with the technology all the time that, again, I think we've grown past that in the printing industry. Everything has its place now, that all the technologies have their place. You know what I mean? And that is not true with video and video production, I don't think, right now. Everyone's still enamored with the technology and still being impressed by it. I mean, I did it with the YouTube video, right?
Yeah.
Oh, no wonder it looks nice. It's a red camera, So where is the playing field will never be level until everyone on YouTube has a red camera, right?
Yeah.
And then now we can go and talk about content and skill and craft of the message that you're delivering. Does that make any sense?
It makes all kinds of sense.
Yeah.
Because again, we're talking about craft versus tools and technique. right?
Yeah.
You can go to school and you can learn and learn and learn and learn craft and technique. You may never, I hate to, it sounds negative when I say it this way. Well, let's put it this way. You may never be Steven Spielberg. You
Yeah.
may never be James Cameron,
Yeah.
but you may be yourself, right? You may get into that position where, like, who would have thought Wes Anderson would come along in this
Sure.
day and age? Talk about static shots, right?
Right.
Boom.
Right.
It's right straight up. Everything is kind of dead center, but it's the content. I mean, this works too. I mean, his stuff looks beautiful, but the content, I think, is what people fall in love with, or they hate it,
Right.
right? One or
Well,
the
but then
other.
that all adds breadth and depth to
Right.
the industry, and it's not going to speak to everyone, but there are people who are like, okay, I've had the explosions and the action films. Oh, what's this? Somebody's staring
Yeah.
directly at the camera for 3 minutes,
Yeah.
delivering a monologue, and the reverse angle is the same composition of the other person, that becomes interesting after a while, right? And that's, again, maybe more to the point, is if you did that in a film school, people would be like, this is terrible. But when you take all of that discussion about, well, maybe they wouldn't say that, but they would be like, you didn't make any cuts here. There's one cut. Like, you have to show off, it's, I guess, getting to that point where you don't feel the need that you have to show off. Right.
Yeah.
That's, it's a conversation. I don't have any answers, but I think it's the conversation I'm always having internally, with
Well,
myself, go ahead.
I was just going to say, or you show off within the parameters. I think when you're
Sure.
showing off and it bleeds out and it makes the story irrelevant, it doesn't add anything, and it says, "Look at me," that's probably wrong.
Yeah. And that actually kind of you start talking about budgets then at that point. Let's be honest. I mean, this is a business and things are becoming more affordable and cheaper, but it's still not free. And the question is, how, are you free personally, John? You're charging for the equipment, or are you charging for you too? I think that's the other factor in this that needs to play out, where people just need to appreciate it, or maybe you need to just work with the people who do appreciate that sort of thing, right? If
Yeah.
somebody doesn't value your time, and I don't even want to say experience, because there could be a 21-year-old who has got it already, who
Mm-hmm.
understands, right? But they should be paid for it. They shouldn't be giving it away. And that speaks to what you were just talking about, is, showing off. Well, just because and I just said it myself, I have a filter plug-in package. I use it twice a year. I don't use it on every project. I use it when I need to use it for the thing I'm doing.
Right.
Right. And maybe there's a propensity for maybe those starting out, or people to be enamored by that to a point where that is their technique is, here's the new shiny thing.
Yeah.
um, and I don't know, I guess that does have to come with experience, but hey, more power to you. If you're doing that and people are paying you for it, well, then you don't need to listen to me anymore.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because we're talking about artistry, craftsmanship, and then technology and technique, and applicable skills and money, and it's all getting thrown into a blender, right?
Yeah.
And I guess it that also makes me think of, you said, am I free, rhetorically, but I think to myself, if somebody needs a project done and they've got an appropriate budget for what it is I'm going to do, and then I feel that they don't really care about me, or I guess value me, it's just a job, and whatever, let's do it. And then I don't know if we're going to work together again. I don't know if that's going to happen again or not.
Right.
But then I've had people who, they value me and they don't have a budget, and it may be somebody fundraising for something. My heart is more in on that than on the other one, because they value me, they value my artistry, my input, and and I have then a heart for them and for what they're doing.
Again, 100,000% right there too, because you're emotionally invested, and it isn't necessarily about the money, but it is nice to have money, something, right? It's
Yeah,
nice to not be taken advantage of, right? If I'm going to invest my emotion into this, put my heart and soul into this, just acknowledge that a little bit, and the way that happens, quite frankly, is through some sort of a paycheck, right?
well, yeah,
um,
because we've got to live and eat and
right,
survive.
right, and that's the thing that I think is it floors me about anybody who would expect somebody to edit something without paying something that made the other person happy, right?
Yeah,
And that's weird too, because that changes over time as you get families or mortgages, or just, again, I got to buy a broadcast monitor.
right.
I got to start charging more money, right? Or going with the projects that have the money already without begging people for it. um, I, I have worked on a few projects. It's been all rosy in my conversation so far, John, but I have had a few people who I've worked with, and I'm not working with them anymore, many years later. A lot of the stuff is cyclical, where you get the same projects every year, which is great to rely on. But, one year you don't get the call. And maybe that's internal changes. Maybe they didn't want to spend the money on it afterwards. And in some cases, it might be because it was really obvious that my heart wasn't in it the last time. You know, I am not. I'm not even going to fight for that. I
Yeah,
won't even call them and beg them for it again. I don't even want to. I don't even want you to tell me why you didn't call me the next year. You
it's
know.
a very Larry David moment, isn't it? It's like,
Yeah.
eh, yeah, you're right.
And like and then you're disappointed by you're counting on the paycheck that month because it's cyclical, and that was my
Right.
every July, that's what I did. And then you don't have it, and then I think it took me like 3 days to go, like, I would be in the middle of hell right now cutting this thing or working on this thing or something. And it was relief. I was like, I don't have to do this. They're never going to call me ever again. So well, I don't know if that's the case or not. And who knows, it may have just been the person who was my contact there left the company, and the new person didn't know who to call. Who knows. But for whatever reason, there's certain things that I don't miss. I would be really sad if Check Please went away. I'd be sad if this travel show went away. I really would love to work on another movie soon, but you'd still need that downtime after. It's long hours and it's exhausting. I don't think you could go from one feature directly to another feature, because you just need that decompression time. Um, but yeah, you're right. It's like everything in a blender. It's like technology, skills, your personality, your ability to work with and collaborate with other people, and money, and it's not always one does it. There is never a clear winner, on reasons why you're working on something.
So you've been independent for how long now?
I don't know. I don't really, it wasn't like there was a day where I'm like, I am not. Yesterday I was not independent, and today I am. Although that probably did exist.
Well, I guess probably the
I'm
question
gonna
then maybe,
guess 12 years.
yeah, I mean, like the last time you worked for a company full time.
Oh yeah, well I guess that would do it, right? um,
Yeah.
yeah, I guess it would be like 12 years is my guess.
Okay. And how was that? I mean, because that's like going from what it can be, I'm assuming, so you can tell me if I'm wrong, but like going from a big old battleship out to a dinghy, you know,
Yeah.
and
Well, I didn't do it without, you know, I think I had one thing, like, if you're going to go move to LA to be a filmmaker, well, have a job before you go out there. Don't go out there without the first lead, Um, so it was sort of like that. I knew I had at least one thing to work on if I decided to go freelance, So I'm like, okay, there's one thing, and that'll last me a couple months and I'll be fine. And then we'll take it from there, and fingers crossed. And then that's when that email went out, I think. And I said, I'm available. And then it's literally the last time I've ever had to say that to anyone. So you know, lucky me, I guess. You know, I feel very lucky, and I know this is probably something everyone says. I feel so lucky with everything that happened, because any one of these could have gone the wrong way. You know, I could have not gotten any responses from that email I sent out, and then I don't know what I'd be doing. You know.
You would, of course, corrected. You would have just, you'd have gone and found something, but
Yeah, you know, I think that's the challenge for people now, and even me at that time in the mid 2000s, there were very, again, the big places were going away. I couldn't just go to another post house who would value my experience, because those places just don't exist anymore. You know, it really is all about having these list of contacts. It's not, you know, this isn't a ad in the Tribune or you know, Monster or whatever that you need to reply and send a resume to and wait for the callback and then do a first interview and a second interview. That's not what we do, right? So you need to, somebody needs to know who you are in order to call you, right? Because,
yeah.
you know, I usually look at it this way: the people who are hiring me, because I'm just you know, a part of the process here. I'm the you know, I'm the editor. I think the people who are calling me are getting a phone call. I mean, it could be happening right now, John. They're getting a phone call saying, "We have this project. We'd like you to do it." And that person is, without looking at their calendar or anything, saying, "Yes, we will do your project for you." Okay, great. Yes. Okay, thank you. And then they hang up, and then like, okay, crap. Who do we know? Who do we know? We need a camera person. We need an editor. See who's available for this. You know, and I have gotten some calls from people who refer me other editors who turn down jobs because they've got a big thing going on. There's like no way I can do that. So they'll turn it down and they'll say, well, here, why don't you call this person or call that person? Again, you used to get hired at a building that automatically that happened. You know, now you don't get hired by a building full of people that happens automatically. Now you have to sort of know the building without having a building to go to every day, you know? And the only way to do that is through contacts and working with people and having people refer you. And I'm sure you know this, right?
Yeah, I mean that's been my career. It makes me think of this is going to be the movie quote day. We bring up scenes from movies. But do you remember when M. Night Shyamalan was considered an up-and-comer?
Oh,
and
sure. Yeah.
and he wrote and directed Unbreakable. Remember
Mhm.
Unbreakable?
Yeah.
And the whole plot line of the story is there's this guy who he's really strong and he's indestructible and he doesn't know if it's real or not. And he's got this maniac, Samuel L. Jackson, saying to him, no, it's you, it's you, it's you. And finally he believes it. He buys it. And it's Bruce Willis, of course. And Bruce Willis is talking to him on the phone, and he asks Samuel L. Jackson's character, Mr. Glass, he asks him, what do I do now? And Mr. Glass says, go to where people are. and he goes to the train station and he holds his hands out because he'll get flashes from people. He'll like see their evil, right? Their
Yeah.
sins. And he holds his hand out, and then he finds like a serial killer. He knows that's who he's supposed to go after. But I think, that was a very dramatic story, but I think that's what we do. You've got to be in proximity to people who are creative and working in the field in which you want to apply your skills.
Right. And for me also, that's not surrounding myself with all editors.
Right.
I need to be in touch with directors and producers and even writers or producers. You know, I need to be on those people's radars. I don't need to be in a room full of editors because we're all competing for the same job at that point, right?
Yeah.
Again, that's valuable still, because when somebody turns down something, you get a new client from their referral. But again, the only reason I know those editors could probably stem back from being in that one big building 25 years ago,
Right.
where everybody branches off from having had that working relationship at some point. You know, and I don't know, that's like sort of the advice for my students. I don't know what to tell them these days. I can't tell them go get an internship at the big post house, because there are no big post houses anymore, you know. And I don't know, I feel for them, which is why I say I'm lucky. And I don't know if it's lucky because of me, it's just lucky because of the time we grew up in. I mean, that's literally it. Lucky me. You know, so I don't know what I would do these days other than that. I do know that obviously there are new editors all the time working on new things. So I know that there is work out there. One of the editors, again, in my class, we do talk a lot about editors and read interviews with them. One of them said that he was on a film set as a PA. So he's an editor, but he would take production assistant jobs on film sets. I think there's two reasons for that. One, he said that he got to know how film worked. So you understand the entire process, which is important, right? For any discipline, you need to understand the whole world you're dealing with, right? And also for him too, he said that it was, I mean, I think it's all because then you know people, right?
Right.
And you're not surrounded by a room full of editors. You're surrounded by a bunch of people making films. I know so many stories of people randomly run into a director at NYU when they were going to film school, and it's just like being available at the time somebody needed you, right? Like Francis Ford Coppola points to somebody, it's like, hey, you help me on my next film, you know, back in the 70s, and that person's still editing to this day, you know.
Right.
That's, where are those opportunities today? I don't know. Right.
Well, do you remember, I don't know if I'll leave this in or not, but do you remember going to Skywalker Ranch?
Oh yeah,
And then,
of course.
Wayne, do you remember when we went to Skywalker Ranch?
I showed them in my class the other day to prove it. But I also, I had a picture of, I sent you the pictures at some point. The picture of the matte painting.
Yeah.
Of the Return of the Jedi with the
Don was holding
the
it
shuttle.
out.
Yeah. And I just wanted to show them, like my students, I'm like, this is where the term matte comes from. It's like, you know, and this is how they did it. It was like a revealing of the man behind the curtain. It was like, and if you look at that shot in the film, you're never going to tell. And even though you're looking at this, like, well, this is like a terrible painting, you know?
Right. And on film, it's like,
it's
whoa,
like a believable world, you know. Welcome to the magic of movies there, right? So that's why I brought it up, because yes, I remember Skywalker.
So do you remember walking into the main house? Do you remember who was walking out? There was a man walking out.
I remember Ben Burt.
It was Ben Burt. Do you remember as he's coming out, I said, Mr. Burt. And he looked at me like, wow, you're a geek. You're really a geek if you know me.
You know who I am, yeah.
But anyway, we walked into, by the way, I've never told, I've told the story, but I've never had anybody to corroborate it. So thank you. I'm glad it's not like a waking dream I've been thinking about running into Ben Burt. But we went through the front door, and then there was that beautiful staircase with the redwood refurbished, and there was Yoda in a case. And then we went around to George Lucas's office, and we walked in. And Don said he wasn't there. He'd hurt his wrist or something.
And oh, right. He was like playing racquetball or something. I swear. Yeah.
I remember standing in the office and thinking to myself, how the heck did I get here?
Yeah.
How did I get here? And it was because of a girl I dated in high school, and she was a volleyball player, and her coach's brother-in-law was Don Bees.
Right.
And it was like,
who was showing us around, and how did I get there? I knew you, you know, I mean, it just goes on and on and on. Right. And how did my students just get shown a matte painting from Return of the Jedi? It's because they were in my class, who I know you, who you knew Don through, you know what I mean? It's crazy to think about it that way.
Yeah.
I guess, you know, that's a microcosm of getting hired these days, is you have to have people who you relate to and relate to you. Maybe that's the place I want to be, and I shouldn't even speak for anyone else. Those are the people I want to be with.
So that's part one of my episode with Wayne, and we're going to pick up the second part next week. The things that really hit me today are you got to ask for work. You network, which is hugely important, right? But then you got to ask for the work, and it's amazing how the ball can get rolling from that. And I don't know why it seems like at times it can be so hard to ask for work, but we got to do it. You got to ask people, hey, how can I help you? How can I serve you with what it is that I do? Otherwise, you're going to have to find work other ways. And if it's outside of the creative realm and that's what you're supposed to be doing, ooh, that can be a tough road to hoe. And then there's building relationships in the midst of all that are so important. And Wayne has been so good at that. He talked about never burning bridges. He talked about how those relationships just can turn into more and more work and more projects. But at the root of it, relationships are fun, right? And they're good. And it's what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be in relationship with each other. And then, if you care about the people that you're working on the project with, it just goes that much further. And if they care about you and they know you care about them, boy, it's just amazing the wonderful things that can grow out of that. And then, Wayne talked about the technical versus storytelling, how I think a lot of times we can think that the newest computer program, the newest tool, is going to override any deficits that we might have in storytelling or any other deficits we might think we might have, right? And ultimately, the technical knowledge and use of the tool is very important. I mean, that's no doubt. But if you don't have the ability to tell stories, if you're an editor, say, or if you don't have the ability to capture the essence of whatever it is creatively you need to catch, then you're just kind of a ghost in the machine, right? Like it's kind of empty, and the spirit of what you're after is more than just being in the machine, right? The spirit of what you're after is to capture the hearts and the attention of the viewer, whether you be a visual artist, you be an editor of film and video, you be a painter, if you're an author, if you're a performer, whatever it is, you're trying to capture the heart. You're not just trying to technically walk through whatever it is that you do. Although again, that's a part of it, right? But that technical should only be there to help prop up, lift up the soul and the heart of the matter. And boy, that's a fine line to walk. But that is enough for today. I'm going to come back with Wayne again next week. And I'm really, really looking forward to hearing part 2. And in the meantime, I hope that you get busy about the business of creating something from which you can earn a living. Okay? So go on out there and do that. And I'll see you next time. All right. Cheers.